It is the morning of August 24th, 79 AD. Somewhere in the Bay of Naples, a woman is baking bread. A merchant is arranging amphorae of garum, fermented fish sauce, outside his shop door. Children are chasing each other through narrow stone streets, still cool from the night. A gladiator is stretching in a courtyard. A magistrate is reading correspondence. And none of them, not one, knows that in less than 12 hours, the city they are standing in will cease to exist. Pompeii, a Roman city of 20,000 souls, wealthy, noisy, politically charged, deeply alive. A city with fast food counters on every corner, with election graffiti plastered on walls, with lovers' names scratched into plaster. And then, silence. For 17 centuries, Pompeii lay buried under 18 feet of volcanic ash and pumice, hidden, preserved, waiting. What archaeologists found when they finally dug through that ash was not just ruins. It was a city mid-sentence, a loaf of bread still in the oven, a dog chained to a post, a family huddled together in their final moments, still holding each other. This is not a story about a disaster. This is a story about a city that was alive and the extraordinary, terrible thing that happened to it. To understand what was lost, you have to understand what Pompeii was. By 79 AD, Pompeii had existed for centuries. It sat at the mouth of the Sarno River, sheltered by hills, warmed by volcanic soils so rich it produced some of the finest wine and olive oil in the empire. The town was prosperous. Not the grandest city in the Roman world, but comfortably, confidently alive. Walk its streets and you would have been overwhelmed by sound. Merchants shouting prices, wheels of carts grinding over stone, the smell of baking bread mixing with the tang of fish sauce and the sour heat of the Volcanic, the laundries. The city had a theater, 2 theaters, a gladiatorial arena, a forum bordered by gleaming temples, public baths open to everyone for the price of a coin, brothels advertised with painted signs, taverns served hot food through street-side counters that still survive today, their embedded ceramic pots intact. And everywhere, graffiti. Scrawled on walls by ordinary Romans, messages of love, political endorsements, insults, jokes. One wall reads, "Gaius Pumidius Dipillus was here." Another, "Restituta, take off your tunic, please, and show us your hairy privates." Ancient and utterly human. This was not a ghost town waiting to die. It was messy, loud, ambitious, flawed. It was a city in the middle of its own story. And then the mountain changed everything. The mountain had been speaking for days, perhaps longer. Vesuvius was not unknown as a geological feature. Romans knew it existed. They even farmed its fertile slopes, growing grapes in soil enriched by millennia of ancient eruptions. But in 79 AD, Vesuvius had been quiet for so long that no living person in Campania had ever seen it erupt. It was simply a mountain, a beautiful, useful mountain. The warning signs, in hindsight, were clear. Weeks before the eruption, wells and springs across the region began to dry up. Deep underground, superheated magma was displacing groundwater. Animals behaved strangely. Dogs refused to eat. Birds disappeared from the sky. The earth itself trembled. Minor earthquakes rippled through the region, cracking walls, toppling furniture. But none of this was new. Campania sat on seismically active ground. Earthquakes were common. 17 years earlier, in 62 AD, a major earthquake had devastated the region. Pompeii had spent the intervening years rebuilding. When the tremors came again in August of 79 AD, many residents dismissed them as ordinary annoyances, the cost of living in paradise. The Roman engineer Pliny the Elder, stationed with the imperial fleet at Misenum across the bay, noticed something different in the afternoon of August 24, 79 AD. Not an earthquake, something larger, something rising. A column of smoke shaped like a pine tree climbing from the summit of Vesuvius. He ordered his ships to sail toward it. At approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon on August 24, 79 AD, Vesuvius detonated. The explosion was not a slow build. It was sudden, catastrophic, and incomprehensible to anyone who witnessed it. In geological language, we now understand a Plinian eruption, the most violent category. A column of superheated gas, ash, pumice, and rock blasted 18 kilometers into the stratosphere in the first minutes. The sound alone would have been heard hundreds of miles away.
In Pompeii, 8 kilometers to the south-southwest, the initial blast was terrifying but survivable. The city did not immediately die. What fell first was pumice, lightweight volcanic rock raining down like hail relentlessly for hours. Roof tiles cracked, animals screamed, the sky turned black. Here is where the human choices were made, and here is where the tragedy deepened. Many people fled immediately. They poured into the streets, grabbed what they could carry, coins, jewelry, keys, and ran toward the city gates, toward the sea, toward the roads leading out of the region. These people, in many cases, survived. Others stayed. Some believed the eruption would pass. Some could not abandon their homes, their possessions, their elderly relatives. Some were slaves with no choice. Some were simply paralyzed by disbelief. And as the hours passed, the pumice accumulated. Roofs began to collapse under the weight. Moving through the streets became harder. And then, sometime in the night, something far worse than pumice descended on Pompeii. Through the night of August 24th, Vesuvius continued to erupt. The column of ash and debris reached its peak, perhaps 30 kilometers high. And then, in the early morning hours of August 25th, the column began to collapse. This is the moment that killed Pompeii. When a Plinian eruption column collapses, it does not merely fall. It generates what geologists call pyroclastic density currents, fast-moving avalanches of superheated gas, ash, and rock fragments, traveling at speeds of up to 700 kilometers per hour, at temperatures that can exceed 300 degrees Celsius. They are, in practical terms, unsurvivable. The first surge struck Herculaneum, the coastal town to the north of Vesuvius, at around 1 in the morning. In seconds, it was over. The second, larger, reached Pompeii. People who had survived through the night, who had huddled in basements, in temples, in the cellars of villas, died in those final moments not from falling rock, but from the heat. At 300 degrees, the body does not burn slowly. Muscles contract, bones fracture, death comes in an instant. And then the surge passed, depositing its ash around every body, every object, every womb in the city. The ash cooled, hardened,
and the plaster casts archaeologists would make 2,000 years later, those haunting, hollow shapes of human beings, they are not rock or stone. They are the exact impressions left by the heat and the ash around bodies that then decomposed over centuries. The people of Pompeii are gone, but the shape of their final moments remains. We know what happened at Pompeii with unusual precision for the ancient world, and we owe that to a 17-year-old boy. His name was Gaius Caecilius Secundus. History knows him as Pliny the Younger, nephew of the great naturalist Pliny the Elder, who would die on the shores beneath Vesuvius trying to rescue survivors. On the day of the eruption, Pliny the Younger was staying at his uncle's house in Misenum, across the Bay of Naples, approximately 30 kilometers from Pompeii. He survived. And decades later, at the request of the historian Tacitus, he wrote down everything he remembered. His 2 letters are among the most extraordinary documents of the ancient world. He describes his mother pointing at an unusual cloud rising from the mountain. He describes his uncle's calm scientific curiosity, ordering a boat to investigate. He describes the sky turning black in the middle of the afternoon. He describes the ground shaking so violently that carts lurched back and forth on level ground. He describes people tying pillows to their heads with cloth to protect against falling pumice. A moment so specific, so absurdly practical, that it feels pulled from yesterday. He writes, "I could boast that not a groan or cry of fear escaped me in these perils, but I admit that I derived some poor consolation in my mortal lot from the belief that the whole world was dying with me, and I with it." These are words written not in legend, not in myth. These are words written by a frightened boy who watched the world end and somehow found the language to describe it. After the eruption ended, Pompeii was gone. Not destroyed in the way that cities are usually destroyed, not burned, not pillaged, not crumbled by time. Simply covered, sealed beneath 18 feet of pumice and ash. The Roman world knew something terrible had happened. The Emperor Titus sent aid to the survivors. Refugees resettled in nearby towns. And then, slowly, the memory of where Pompeii had stood faded. Generations passed. The earth reclaimed the landscape. The name Pompeii survived in old documents, in fragments of writing, but the city itself became a mystery. Its location, its contents, its people. For 17 centuries it waited. In 1748, a Spanish military engineer named Roque Joaquín de Alcubierre began supervised excavations at a site near the modern town of Civita. Workers digging down through the ash hit something unexpected. Walls, streets, art, objects of extraordinary preservation. They had found Pompeii. And what they found was not ruins, it was a city preserved in the moment of its death. Paint still vivid on walls, bread loaves carbonized in ovens, wine jars sealed and intact. The earthquake of 62 AD had prompted extensive rebuilding. Work was still underway in some parts of the city when the eruption struck. Scaffolding, bricks, construction tools, all frozen in place. The past, it turned out, had not disappeared, it had merely been waiting to be found. In 1763, an Italian archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli made a discovery that would change how the world understood Pompeii. For a century, excavators had been puzzling over the voids they kept encountering in the hardened ash, hollow spaces with no obvious purpose. Fiorelli realized what they were. When the pyroclastic surges had buried the city, the ash had hardened around every object, every animal, every human body, preserving the exact shape of the space they occupied. Over the centuries, the organic material, flesh, wood, cloth, had decomposed, but the shape remained, a hollow mold of the final moment. Fiorelli began pumping liquid plaster into these voids. What emerged was devastating. A dog curled against its chain, trying to climb above the rising ash. A family, a man, woman, and 2 children, huddled together in a small room, the adults apparently trying to shield the children with their own bodies. A woman who died with her face buried in her cloak, perhaps trying to filter the air. A pregnant woman. People clutching coins, people covering their faces. A gladiator who died in a prison cell, shackled, unable to run.
These are not artistic representations. They are not statues. They are the exact forms of real people who lived real lives, who had names and histories we will never know. And in their final postures, the way a mother bent over her child, the way a man raised his arm, something essential about what it means to be human survived the mountain and the centuries. Pompeii is not merely a tragedy. It is also the single most complete archive of ordinary Roman life in existence. Because of the eruption, historians know things about daily Roman life that no text ever recorded. They know what Romans ate for lunch. Charred food remains in Thermopylae reveal menu items including roasted duck, sea urchin, lentils, and pork rind. They know how Romans voted. Painted electoral notices covered dozens of walls, endorsing candidates for local office with the same breathless enthusiasm as any modern campaign. They know how Romans loved, and sometimes how bitterly they argued, from graffiti that ranges from tender to obscene. They know the economic life of the city. The marks of wagon wheels worn deep into the street stones reveal the most heavily trafficked routes. The placement of taverns, bakeries, and workshops maps an entire economic ecosystem. And they know something more unexpected, that Pompeii was, in many ways, deeply cosmopolitan. DNA analysis of skeletal remains has found individuals from across the Mediterranean, from Africa, from the Near East, from the far northern provinces of the empire. Pompeii was not a place of pure Roman culture. It was a place where cultures converged, where languages mixed, where people arrived seeking a better life in a prosperous coastal city. In other words, a place that is, in its essential human contours, not entirely unlike many places today. The volcano did not just destroy a city, it preserved a mirror. On the morning of August 24th, 79 AD, a woman in Pompeii baked bread. A merchant arranged his wares. Children ran through cool stone streets. They did not know they were about to become history's most extraordinary witnesses, not through anything they did or chose, but simply through the brutal accident of geography and geology. The mountain chose them, and in choosing them, it chose to preserve them. Pompeii endures not because it was the most important city in the Roman world. It endures because, in its ordinariness, in its taverns and its graffiti and its fast food and its election posters and its lovers' quarrels scratched into plaster, it is recognizable. It is us, as we were 2,000 years ago. Frightened, ambitious, affectionate, petty, generous, alive. The volcano silenced the city, but it did not silence the people.
every footstep worn into its stone thresholds, every name carved into its walls, every loaf of bread frozen in its ovens. These are voices. Quiet ones, ordinary ones, but voices nonetheless. Pompeii was a city that died in an afternoon, and it has been speaking to us ever since. And now, a question for you. Pompeii gave humanity almost no other disaster ever has, a perfect freeze frame of a single ordinary day. If you could step into that morning of August 24th, knowing what was coming, what is the one thing you would want to witness before the mountain took everything away?